Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. It's been a few weeks since my previous class guide in Diablo 2. I had to take some time to make two druids. One was an elemental druid and another was a shapeshifter. The shapeshifter takes a little bit more time, not only because of the fact it's gear dependent in order to beat the game in hell mode, but also just the fact that it's very different in regards to elemental in comparison. So for that reason I had to kind of organize this guide to cover both. So for that reason we're going to jump into the video very quickly here just to try and keep it nice and short. So with that being said, I just want to say you guys voted on the Druid here, which won the poll with 29%. I will be doing Paladin after the Druid, and then I will have another poll for you guys to choose what you want to see next out of the remaining classes. So with all of that being said, I hope you find something useful in this guide, and let's get straight to it. So when it comes to the Druid, you have the good, the bad, and the ugly. The elemental tree is definitely the good part of the Druid because it deals some of the highest damage in the early game of Diablo 2, including when compared to other classes. From the start of level 1 until Nightmare Act 3, you will be annihilating groups in 1 or 2 hits. Molten Boulder at level 6 will melt anything it comes in contact with, even 8-player difficulty monsters which have more than 450% increased health. The Fire Elemental Druid is absolutely insane and one of the top DPS classes, so if you're looking for a DPS class in a reset team, the Fire Elemental Druid is definitely key. Now, once you hit level 12, you will be replacing your Molten Boulder skill with Fissure, which allows you to continue deleting everything with better damage, better AoE, and it will kill stuff while you continue to move on. When you reach Nightmare though, Wind Elemental becomes your new go-to elemental build because fire begins to suffer from the fact monsters have higher fire resistance, and in Hell mode, a lot of monsters have fire immunities. When you decide to switch to the Wind build, you'll be focusing on Hurricane, which slows targets around you, deals cold damage, and surrounds you for up to 50 seconds while allowing you to use other abilities at the same time. Your main damaging skill will be Tornado because it deals high physical damage and is really good for both AoE and single target. The Wind Elemental Druid also has Cyclone Armor, which absorbs elemental damage, allowing you to have an easier time weathering Hell mode's elemental damage compared to other classes. The Druid Shapeshifting tree is viable, but is bad compared to Elemental because it deals less damage, has little to no AoE, and is gear dependent. For Shapeshifting, it is preferable to run a Werewolf build instead of a Werebear build, simply because it has much better attack speed, has great lifesteal, and also deals much more damage. With the Werewolf build, you will be auto-attacking with Blazing Speed until you unlock Feral Rage at level 12. Feral Rage strikes even faster and grants a stacking buff that increases your movement speed and your lifesteal for 20 seconds. At level 30, Fury becomes your main new damage skill, allowing you to strike a single target multiple times or multiple targets in a short period of time. Between Feral Rage's movement speed buff, Werewolf's natural attack speed, and Fury's multiple strikes, you become the very definition of speed itself. Alright, so we have the good with the elemental, the bad when it comes to the shapeshifter, and then we have the ugly with the Druid Summoning Tree. I call the Druid Summoning Tree ugly in this comparison because it's both very, very good, yet very, very bad. The Summoning Druid is kind of weird actually, because Blizzard honestly really hit it out of the park with the Summon Necro, as many people know if you're familiar with Diablo 2, that the Summon Necro is both good at the game, but also really fun to play. You get to summon like 20 skeletons, 20 revives, a golem of your choice, and you get an amazing damage ability through Corpse Explosion. Yet, here we are a year after Diablo 2 with the Summon Necro, Blizzard creates the Druid, and they put so many weird issues with the summoning tree. For example, you don't get to summon a bunch of animals. You have to choose between 3 options. Either 5 weak Spirit Wolves, 3 slightly better Dire Wolves, or just a single bear. In addition to this, Ravens are also completely useless in terms of their damage output. So basically, if you're focusing on playing summoning as a druid, you're not going to have a lot of fun simply because of how weak it is as a build. However, the reason why it's also extremely good is because as a support tree, you can get a lot of benefit from it with just a few points of investment. For example, just having 1 point into Oak Sage will boost yours and your party members' health by at least 30%, up to 125% with 20 points. And a 1 point into Bear is strong enough to tank Hell mode by itself. If you're a shapeshifter, Heart of the Wolverine is also a great option. It does replace Oak Sage, but it will boost your weapon-based damage, such as Fury, and will also increase your attack rating for you and your party. Alright, so let's take a look at the builds that we have today. We have the Elemental Druid and the Shapeshifting Druid. For the Elemental Druid, you want to start off leveling as the Fire Elemental build. This is, as I mentioned earlier, one of the highest damaging builds in the entire game, including comparing to all other classes. You want to start off with your first 5 levels, putting everything into Firestorm, including your Den of Evil quest. As soon as you hit level 6, you want to put a point into Molten Boulder, and this becomes your new main damaging skill. Put one more point in at level 7, because this will allow Molten Boulder to basically two-shot everything in Act 1, and then once you get level 8 to 11, more points into Firestorm. The reason why you want to go back to Firestorm here, despite the fact you're using Molten Boulder, is that Firestorm increases the damage of Fissure, which you will unlock at level 12, which is going to be your new main damaging skill. From level 12 and onward, every point should be going into Fissure, and if you get any spare points from questing, you basically want to put that into Firestorm if you can't put any more into Fissure. Now, you want to respec into Wind at least at level 30 or when you kill Nightmare Mephisto. So for example, if you're doing normal Bale runs and you're not into Nightmare yet, but you're like level 35, you can respec into Wind if you want. If you don't want to respec into Wind yet, you can go right into Nightmare and continue on until you kill Nightmare Mephisto. The reason why this is your cutoff for respecking is that Nightmare Act 4 is when it starts getting really difficult for fire skills, so that's when you want to respec. But you also want to do it either after 30 or sometime again in Nightmare, because you want to unlock Hurricane, which requires level 30. Now, when you do respec, the Wind build is very simple. As you can see on the right side, it's simply 1 into Summon Grizzly, then you want to pick up your Tornado, max it out, every other spare point should be going into Hurricane, and then once you have Tornado and Hurricane maxed, spare points go into Cyclone Armor, and then Twister afterwards. If you are level 80 or so at this point, then you want to start putting it into maybe Oak or Grizzly, simply for the extra damage or extra life. When it comes to stats, it's pretty simple for the Druid. All points should be going into Vitality, but you want to keep in mind a few key aspects. For example, there is a belt in Act 2 you will be buying. It requires 25 Strength. So around, say, level 8 or 9, you will have 15 Strength, so you want to put points in until you have 25 Strength, because you want 25 Strength before you hit Act 2. You don't have to get it right away at level 3 or 4, just sometime later around, say, 9, 10, 11, 8, around there. It's really up to you, but you don't need too much strength. Alright, let's talk about the Shapeshifting Druid. There are 2 builds you could technically go here. One I've seen is the Rabies build, and a second one is the Physical Fury build. I thought about including the Rabies build, but I'm not too much of a fan of it, to be honest. I think the Fury build is much more enjoyable to play, and on top of that, most players run Fury instead anyway, because it's just what players like when it comes to shapeshifting. So I don't really recommend Rabies. I think playing Fury is just much more enjoyable and fun. So we're going to be covering that one here, where we can see here at level 2, you clearly, obviously, want to pick up Werewolf first at level 2, and then at level 3, you want to pick up Lycanthropy to give you a whopping 20% health boost, and I believe 40 seconds extra on your Werewolf duration. From 4 to 5, you want to go back into Werewolf, your Den of Evil quest as well. It's really important to get some points into Werewolf early, because the attack speed will allow you to hit some of the break points you need to attack faster. At level 6, you want to pick up Oak Sage, because it's not only required for Heart of Wolverine at 18, but you also need that extra health boost because you will be putting points into Strength early on, so any bit of health you can get to compensate for that is really good. From level 7 to 11, you want to go back into Werewolf for that attack rating and attack speed boost. Eventually, you will hit a really big breakpoint with all these points, especially when you get a new weapon from the Steel at level 13. And as you can see here at level 12 to 17, that's when you get your first main attacking ability, Feral Rage, as I mentioned earlier, which will provide you a buff not only to increase your movement speed and your life steal, but it'll also attack faster and it deals more damage than your auto attacks. So 5 points into there. When you do your Radamant quest in Act 2, you want to put that point into Lycanthropy just to increase duration and health, because you can't put it into Feral Rage anyway. And then at 18, you want to unlock your Heart of Wolverine, so it will replace your Oak Sage and will give you a damage and attack rating boost to you, your summons, and your mercenary. From 19 to 22, you want to put your points into Feral Rage, which should give you about 10 points total in that skill, and you don't really have to go much higher than that. It's really going to be a secondary skill once you unlock Fury at level 30, and honestly 10 points is more than enough. From 23 to 29, continue putting points into Werewolf for that attack rating and attack speed boost, and then when you complete Iswal in Act 4, Rabies and Lycanthropy, because Rabies is a requirement to unlock Fury at 30, and Lycanthropy, once again, doesn't hurt to increase your duration. And at level 30, you finally unlock your main damaging skill, which is Fury, and you want to continue maxing Fury all the way to level 50 here once you unlock it. After you've maxed Fury, max out your Werewolf, and then max out Heart of Wolverine to give you extra damage and attack rating. So basically that's the build here for the Fury Druid. In terms of skills, you can skip a few maybe Feral Rage or Werewolf points if you want. If you really don't like the short duration on Lycanthropy, you can put a few extra points in there. Personally, I was fine with the 1 or 2 minutes on Werewolf. It didn't get me killed. It was maybe a little bit annoying having to go into Werewolf a little bit more often than most people might prefer, but honestly, I just prefer the points in Werewolf. Now, I do want to also mention here, I'm not a Shapeshifter expert. This is one of those builds that I don't play very often. In fact, I think the last time I played one was more than, I don't know, 8 to 10 years ago. So I'm not an expert here, but I will guarantee you here that this build I ran on a Shapeshifter Druid just a few weeks ago, and I had no struggles whatsoever. Alright, so the stats. Now, level 2, 3, 4, and 5, you should be putting all of your stats into Strength. This should give you a total of 35 Strength at level 5, so you can then equip the Large Axe. From level 4 to 10, every point should then be going into Vitality, since health is really important. And then at level 11, 12, and 13, you want to put your points into Strength, so you have a total of 48 to now wear the Broad Axe. After that, all the rest of the points should be going into Vitality, and you shouldn't have to worry about putting Strength in for gear unless you find something amazing and you want to equip it. But generally, I was fine with just 48 Strength going through the game. So as you go through the game in Act 1, keep an eye out for animal pelts as they will grant a bonus to Druid skills. There are a lot of useful skills, such as Oak Sage and Summon Grizzly, but the most important animal pelts for you are going to be the ones that increase your main damaging skill, such as Molten Boulder at level 6, Fissure from level 12 onward, and Tornado when you're respeccing in a Wind, as well as Fury as a Shapeshifter. Werewolf can also be pretty good too for the attack rating, Lycanthropy as well early on, but your main damaging skills are what's important on those animal pelts. Whenever you're in town, check Charcy for a 2-socketed armor and 2-socketed helm. The 2-socketed armor will be used to craft the Stealth Rune Word, which is going to be your best armor until Nightmare. If you don't find an animal pelt with sockets, the 2-socketed helmet is a great backup for when you need fire resistance against Shamans, Venom Lords, and Diablo himself in Acts 3 and 4. Their fire skills can kill you instantly if you have low fire res, so you'll want to socket any helmet you find with Ral runes, that way you have the increased fire res. The fire res is especially important for Shapeshifters because you're going to be taking more hits when you're in melee range. For Elemental Druids, you also want to buy a 2-socketed staff from Akara. Look for a staff without any class skills on it, that way it will only cost a few hundred gold. The staff will be used to craft a Leaf Rune Word later, which will boost your fire skills by 3. If you also have around 5,000 gold to spare, you can also buy yourself a wand with 10 faster cast, but honestly, Molten Boulder and Fissure cast fast enough as it is, so you can save the gold and skip on the wand if you prefer. Okay, Shapeshifters, this is a big one. You should be buying and equipping a Large Axe from Charcy as soon as possible. The Large Axe is the fastest 2-handed weapon in Act 1, and it kills monsters in just a few strikes. You'll want to buy a 2-socketed Broad Axe from Charcy or Geed as well, and this will be used to craft the Steel Rune Word at level 13. The weapon you use as a Shapeshifter is crucial for various reasons. First of all, you want to use 2-handed weapons because your block speed with shields in werewolf form is so slow that you will find yourself getting stun locked from constantly blocking. Secondly, most of your attack speed will be coming from your weapon or your werewolf skill, making the increased attack speed stat on armor and jewelry pretty much useless. Thirdly, the werewolf attack animation can be very slow depending on the speed of your weapon. And fourth, being put into hit recovery while using the Fury skill will cause the rest of Fury's attacks to automatically miss. All of these reasons make it very important for you to not only have a very fast attack speed, but also to make sure you don't get surrounded by multiple enemies. When you get to the Black Marsh, you'll want to start doing tower runs. A tower run is simple. Take the Black Marsh waypoint, find the Forgotten Tower, and kill the Countess on the 5th floor. The Countess is the best place to find runes this early into the game, so Shapeshifters will want a Tear rune and an L rune to make Steel, and a Tal rune and Eth rune to make Stealth. For Elemental Druids, you'll want a Tear Rune and Ral Rune to make the Leaf Rune word, and a Tal Rune and Eth Rune to make Stealth. While you're in the tower, make sure to check any chests and burials as they have a high chance to drop jewelry such as charms, jewels, and rings and amulets. Elemental Druids will want to use jewelry with faster cast on them, while Shapeshifters will want to use attack rating or resistances. The faster cast breakpoints for the Druid are 4, 10, 19, 30, 46, 58, 99, and 163. These breakpoints are really important for Elemental Druids so you can cast your spells faster. When you turn in the Heraldic Malice, you can turn a normal item with no sockets into a rare item. The stats on the item depends on the level of your character, so for a Druid, I recommend waiting before you imbue any items. Wait until level 50 at least, before imbuing an Animal Pelt, so you can try and get one with 2 to all Druid skills, and with some luck, an additional 3 to your main damaging skill. Imagine getting a 5 Fury helmet or a 5 Tornado helmet from imbuing. That would be absolutely insane. Now, before you engage Andariel in Act 1, drink a few antidote potions beforehand. This will increase your poison resistance to reduce Andariel's damage. Andariel is also very weak to fire damage, so Elemental Druid should have no problem killing her in just a matter of seconds. For Shapeshifters, she shouldn't be that difficult, but if you want to play it safe, make sure to kill the Dark Shamans first around her, so you're not overwhelmed by all of the Dark ones. The first thing you want to do when you reach Act 2 is buy a belt from Farah. This is why you needed the 25 strength. Next, hire a mercenary from Graze. Act 2 mercenaries are by far the best as they deal the most damage, can tank for you, and they provide an aura that buffs you, your summons, and your merc. As Elemental, I just hire the highest level available since it really doesn't matter what type you pick up early on. But for Shapeshifting, I recommend hiring an offensive merc because his aura provides you Blessed Aim, which increases your attack rating. As you go through Act 2, keep checking Farah for a 3-socketed large shield or kite shield. This will be used to craft the Ancient's Pledge rune word when you reach Act 5. Shapeshifters will also want to keep checking Farah for a 3-socketed flail. The 3-socketed flail is used to craft the black rune word later in Nightmare, which is absolutely important for killing bosses. Before entering the chamber to face Duriel, give you and your mercenary a few thawing potions. The increased cold resistance will prevent you and your merc from getting two-shotted by Duriel. Shapeshifters will want to charge in and quickly get Duriel's attention so that their mercenary stays alive to provide additional damage. Duriel is going to hit you hard, so make sure you have rejuvenation potions on your belt. Elemental Druids will want to run around in their fissure to avoid Duriel's attacks while still being able to burn them down. Now that you're in Act 3, Heraldly should be right beside you. Buy a poleaxe from him if your mercenary needs a new weapon. If you're a Shapeshifter, you'll want to keep checking him for a 2-socketed poleaxe, as this will be used to craft the Strength rune word later. You can also check Ormus for a staff with teleport charges. If you don't have the gold for it, don't worry, you can buy the staff later on in the other acts as well. The teleport staff helps get over annoying terrain and can be used to reposition your mercenary and your summons. Keep in mind, teleport does not work in werewolf form, which can be really annoying. If you're not level 23 by the time you reach the Travancore, I recommend doing temple runs. By doing a temple run, it's pretty simple. Take the Kuros Bazaar waypoint and kill the boss pack Serena inside the ruined temple. Continue running this temple until you have at least level 23 or 24. The reason why this level is important is because you want to be at least 23 in Act 4 and 25 in Act 5 to avoid big experience penalties. When facing the council in Travancore, pull a few of them away from the main area. It's important you only face a few council members at a time because they and their spawned hydras can quickly kill your mercenary and overwhelm you. But if you're elemental, honestly you can probably just cast Fissure into the main room from outside. Fire elemental druids are absolutely overpowered. When facing Mephisto, elemental can cheese him by doing the moat trick. To do the moat trick, all you have to do is get Mephisto's attention and lure him down to the moat area. Then you want to quickly run around to the other side or use your teleport staff. Mephisto should run up to the edge and get stuck patrolling in a line. If you're far enough away, he won't attack you, allowing you to safely cast Fissure until he dies. Shapeshifters unfortunately will have to just face tank him, so I recommend drinking a few thawing and antidote potions beforehand to reduce his cold and poison damage from 2 of his spells. The key to making Act 4 easy on yourself is having high fire resistance. Vizier, the first Seal Guardian, is immune to fire, so elemental druids will have to use their mercenary and Molten Boulder to kill him. For Diablo, he should be simple enough as elemental. Just keep Fissure underneath him and dodge his attacks. It's the shapeshifters that will find Diablo to be the most difficult boss because his lightning breath can kill you in a second if you don't move quick enough. To make it worse, his melee attack can freeze you, so if he follows the attack with a lightning breath, the slow will make it impossible to avoid. For this reason, you may want to keep thawing potions in your belt, or keep your inventory open so you can quickly drink a thawing potion when you're frozen. The fight is going to take at least a few minutes, so hopefully you have plenty of rejuvenation potions, gold for potions, and always keep a town portal up. If you found any items with Crushing Blow earlier, consider using them since Crushing Blow deals massive damage to bosses. You can also equip your mercenary with the Malice rune word, which will reduce Diablo's defense to 0, which will increase your chance to hit significantly. When you first get to Act 5, make sure you're at least level 25 and don't buy anything. The cost of everything in Act 5 is doubled until you complete the first quest, so you'll want to go back to Act 4 to buy your potions. Once you kill Shank the Overseer to complete the first quest, the item prices will go back to normal, and you'll unlock the ability to socket an item, which I recommend saving for later. If you're elemental, you can continue on and complete Act 5, but if you're a shapeshifter, I highly recommend doing Eldritch runs until at least level 30. As a build that uses attack rating, character level plays a huge role in your chance to hit, so getting at least level 30 and unlocking Fury will make the rest of your Act 5 a lot easier as a shapeshifter. The second quest gives you 3 runes, Ral, Ort, and Tal. Take the 3-socketed shield you bought from Farah earlier and socket Ral, Ort, Tal to craft Ancient's Pledge. Ancient's Pledge is a great resistance boost for your journey in Nightmare and Hell, but as a shapeshifter, you want to make this but don't use it until you have your black rune word. When you reach the Ariat summit, make sure to leave a town portal just outside in the Ancient's Way. Activating the Ancient's fight removes all town portals in the summit, and if you open a town portal during the fight will reset, so you want your town portal outside just in case you die. It is important to keep your mercenary alive with potions so he can tank at least one of the Ancients for you. Shapeshifters will want to focus Madoc first, since he is the weakest, then Talak since his whirlwind is the most dangerous, and then finally Korlik. When you clear the throne room of monsters, Bale will laugh and 5 waves will spawn. Elemental should have no issue with the waves, but shapeshifters are going to have a tough time with wave 5 because they stun, knock back, and deal massive damage. If you insist on fighting these minions, then I recommend at least moving them away from Bale so you don't get hit by Decrepify, which will slow your attack speed and reduce your damage. Personally, I choose to skip the minions because they're such a huge hassle as a melee character, but honestly, you can try and fight them if you want. Just try to fight them one at a time as you kite them out of the room. If you want to skip a wave like I did, drag them out of the room and then circle around the block. If you have a teleport staff, you can also teleport over the wall. As long as none of them follow you back into the room, the wave will skip. When fighting Bale, drink thawing potions beforehand to reduce his cold damage. If you find Fissure isn't doing much like it was for me, switch to Firestorm and position yourself at the bottom of Bale. From there, Firestorm should be very effective at burning him down. For shapeshifters, equip any items with Crushing Blow that you found, and stay close to a wall to reduce the knockback distance. There's not a whole lot you can do about Bale, he's just going to be naturally tough as a shapeshifter until you have the proper gear such as Crushing Blow. By defeating normal Bale, you can now open the secret cow level in normal by cubing a Tome of Town portal with Wirt's Leg in Act 1. Elemental druids will want to farm the cow level for a crystal sword with no sockets. Once you have that crystal sword, take it to Larzuk and use your socket quest on it. This 4-socketed sword will be used to craft the spirit rune word later. At this point you can head straight into Nightmare, but if you're a newer player or a shapeshifter, then I recommend continuing to farm normal Bale runs or Eldritch runs until at least level 35. Bale and Eldritch runs can get you much into the 40s, so it's up to you when you're ready for Nightmare in terms of your level. So now that we're ready for Nightmare, let's talk about some of the items and rune words we want to look for as we progress. Lore is a rune word crafted by socketing Ort and Soul into a 2-socketed helmet. This is a quick and easy way to get 1 to all skills, light res, and damage reduction. Lore can be made in Druid pelts, so keep that in mind if you find any with 2 sockets and some pretty good skills on them. Rime is a rune word crafted by socketing Shale and Eth into a 2-socketed shield. Ancient's Pledge gives more res, but the Cannot Be Frozen effect is vital for shapeshifters, so when you get your Black Flail, I recommend using it instead of the Ancient's Pledge. Elemental Druids have Cyclone armor when they respec into Wind, so if you want, you can afford to sacrifice a bit of res if you prefer the magic find and cannot be frozen from the rhyme. Insight is a rune word crafted by socketing Ral, Tyr, Tal, and Sol into a 4-socketed polearm. Keep in mind, Insight cannot be crafted in spears, which is a common rookie mistake. This is one of the best weapons for your mercenary early on in terms of damage, and it's also a pretty great shapeshifter weapon as well, due to its high damage, critical strike effect, and the meditation aura, which boosts your mana regeneration. If you have trouble finding a 4-socketed polearm in Nightmare, you can farm normal cows and then use your socket quest to give it 4 sockets. Spirit is a rune word crafted by socketing Tal, Thal, Ort, and Amn into a 4-socketed sword or shield. Spirit is one of the best caster weapons for a very long time, so elementals will want to use that crystal sword they made earlier and make the Spirit as soon as possible. Strength is a rune word crafted by socketing Amn and Tyr into a 2-socketed melee weapon. The Crushing Blow makes Strength a great boss-killing weapon for your mercenary. Treachery is crafted by socketing Shale, Thal, and Lem into a 3-socketed armor. The Venom adds 300 poison damage to your melee attacks, and the Fade increases all of your resistances by 60, as well as a hidden 15% physical damage reduction bonus. This makes Treachery one of the best armors for your mercenary, and while shapeshifters won't benefit from the increased attack speed, the Fade and Venom still makes Treachery an amazing option for them. Smoke is a rune word crafted by socketing Nef and Lum into a 2-socketed armor. If shapeshifters cannot get their hands on a Lim rune to craft Treachery, then they should craft a smoke for the 50 res. Black is a rune word crafted by socketing Thal, Io, and Nef into a 3-socketed club, hammer, or mace. Even if you have a better weapon such as Insight or a rare like this amazing maul I found on normal Bale, you will still want to make a black anyway because the 40% crushing blow makes it the best boss fighting weapon ever, so make sure when you're facing bosses you have a black equipped. So, other than the Lem rune and the Lum rune, the runes required for most of these rune words drop quite commonly on the Nightmare Countess. So if you want any of these rune words as early as possible, farming Nightmare Countess and the Nightmare Tower is your best bet. While Elemental doesn't need any of these rune words to get through Nightmare easily, shapeshifters I recommend farming Nightmare Countess until you have at least your black rune word and maybe Insight either for yourself or your mercenary. Shapeshifters will also want to start crafting blood gloves for the guaranteed crushing blow effect. To craft blood gloves, you need to cube a pair of magic heavy, sharkskin, or vampire bone gloves with a Nef rune, perfect ruby, and any jewel. If you don't have any gloves, you can shop them at Charcy in any difficulty. Once you get to Nightmare Act 2, I recommend replacing your mercenary with a new one. If you're elemental, hire a defensive Nightmare Act 2 mercenary because his Holy Freeze aura will slow the attack speed and movement speed of enemies around him. If you're shapeshifting, you have 2 choices. You can hire an offensive Nightmare Act 2 mercenary for his Might aura, which will increase both his and your physical damage by at least 200%, or you can hire a defensive Nightmare Act 2 merc to help with your survivability. Okay, let's talk about Nightmare Mephisto. This is really important for shapeshifting druids. If you are truly committed to playing Hell mode as a shapeshifter and beating the entire game as one, then you absolutely need to get better gear. And luckily, most of the items that are required to get through Hell drop from Nightmare Mephisto, which is an easy boss to farm even for a shapeshifter. You can either finish up Nightmare and grind some levels out and then start farming Mephisto, or you can farm Mephisto as soon as you get to him in Act 3. I personally chose to farm Mephisto as soon as I got to him because I wanted to make my Act 4 and 5 easier. But if you want more levels first for the better chance to hit and whatnot, then you can go and do Ruined Temple runs in Act 3, or you can go and do Chaos Sanctuary runs in Act 4, or Eldritch runs in Act 5, depending on what you can handle in Nightmare. When you decide to focus on farming Mephisto for the gear, I highly recommend re-rolling your map until you get the Durance of Hate level 3 next to the waypoint. To re-roll your map, create a game in a different difficulty. In this case, create a game in Normal, leave, and then create a new game in Nightmare. This should re-roll your map, and you'll want to then check the Durance of Hate waypoint and check to see if level 3 is close by. If the map is not to your liking, leave and create a normal game again and repeat the process until you're satisfied with your map. The first required item that drops off Mephisto is Rib Cracker. Rib Cracker is considered one of, if not the best weapon for shapeshifters. With a very fast attack speed, 50% crushing blow, and 50% faster hit recovery, the Rib Cracker is pretty much a shapeshifter's dream. When you finally get your hands on a rib cracker, use your socket quest and socket it with a shale rune. When you find a lum rune, pole rune, and a perfect emerald, you'll then be able to upgrade your rib cracker from an exceptional weapon to an elite weapon. The pole rune isn't a very common rune to find, however, so for the sake of this guide, I chose to go through hell mode without upgrading my rib cracker just to see how well it would do. The damage was fine, but man, after I completed hell mode and upgraded it, the damage difference was night and day. It's safe to say, honestly, that upgrading your rib cracker will be one of your most memorable Diablo 2 moments. The next required item is Ravenfrost. Ravenfrost provides a nice boost to your attack rating, 20% cold absorb, and most importantly, cannot be frozen. In hell mode, a lot of the monsters begin to freeze, so as a melee character it is absolutely crucial to go into hell mode with cannot be frozen. An alternative to the Ravenfrost is Duriel's Shell, but using Duriel's Shell means you cannot use a Treachery or a Smoke, which is a massive loss in your damage reduction. The next list of items I have here are not required, but you can also get them from Mephisto while you're farming your Rib Cracker and Ravenfrost. String of Ears is a great belt for the damage reduction and life leech. On my Shapeshifter, I got extremely lucky and found it in the Stony Field of Nightmare. The Dwarf Star is a decent ring for the fire absorb, life, and damage reduction. Gore Rider is a super rare drop off Mephisto, but if you find them, these are your best in slot boots even into hell mode. For helmets, Mephisto can drop a Rock Stopper, Tal Rashas, and the super rare Vampire Gaze. You don't have to use this set, but if you want to have the extra attack rating to make sure you're not missing all the time, you can use the Angelic Wings with the Angelic Halo together, and this set bonus will greatly increase your attack rating. So once you have your Rib Cracker and an item with Cannot Be Frozen, you should be able to clear out the rest of Nightmare quite easily. Unless you already did it before farming Mephisto, well then I guess you can go into Hell mode. Nightmare Ancients requires level 40 to complete. Elemental Druids will want to stand at the edge of the summit and make sure their bearer is tanking in front of them. If Talak is close enough to the edge of the summit, he will not be able to Whirlwind. For Shapeshifters, kill Madoc first, just like in normal. After the Ancients, be careful of Lightning Souls and Undead Dolls when you're heading to Baal's throne room. If you run into Souls, I recommend grabbing the Worldstone waypoint and then creating new games until you get a game without them. The Dolls are not as bad as the Souls, it's just that they're risky because they explode for massive damage when they die. Baal's minions shouldn't be too much of an issue. All Elemental has to do is keep the bear summoned up in front to take the hits. If Shapeshifters have their Rib Cracker farmed, the damage and Crushing Blow will make short work of the minions. The only concern is getting surrounded or decrepified by Baal. I recommend doing Nightmare Baal runs until at least level 65 before going into Hell mode. I was able to handle Hell mode at level 49 on my Elemental Druid, but my Shapeshifter needed at least 65 to maintain a decent chance to hit. Nightmare Baals can get you to at least level 78, so if you want to continue farming Nightmare Baal for items in addition to experience, here are some of the key items that can drop, such as Jalal's Mane, Vampire Gaze, and Gore Rider. If you want better gear for your Elemental Druid despite the fact it's not really necessary, I recommend farming Nightmare Mephisto for some of the items I mentioned previously, as some of them are still good for Elemental. Additionally, you can also find a Viper Magi, Mosers, Triangle Gloves, or Mage Fist for the faster cast. So when it comes to Hell mode, all you really need is the right build, a little bit of strategy, and in the case of shapeshifting, some pretty good gear. As long as Elemental Druids keep Cyclone Armor active and have the bear tank at all times in front, they shouldn't have too much of an issue completing Hell mode. The real talk in this Hell mode guide is going to be shapeshifting, because as a melee build, taking damage is unavoidable, and many boss packs can easily kill you, especially if they are aura enchanted or cursed. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the best thing you can do as a shapeshifter is to avoid getting surrounded and to try and focus on 1 or 2 monsters at a time to make sure Fury hits the same target to burst them down. If Hell feels a little too difficult, consider switching back to Nightmare and get that Nightmare Defensive Act 2 merc to help with your survivability. You can also consider magic fighting more Nightmare until you have an upgraded Rib Cracker and a decent amount of resistances. I think the biggest game changer here as a shapeshifter will be not only the Rib Cracker, but an upgraded Rib Cracker, and then also enough resistances so you can actually sit in melee for enough time to get some damage in. The first main challenge is usually Travancore. This time in Hell mode, make sure to kill the Hierophants and Zealots surrounding the main area. Leaving them alive will cause the Hierophants to heal the council members to full, plus you don't want to get overwhelmed quickly. For the Hell Ancients fight, drop a bunch of potions on the ground just in case you need them. When you spawn the Ancients, quickly mouse over them and check the modifiers. You want to avoid any Ancients with Cursed or Lightning Enchanted because those will kill your bear and your shapeshifter way too quickly. You also want to make sure none of the Ancients have Immune to Physical or Stone Skin, because Tornado and Fury both deal physical damage. Once you've spawned the Ancients and they have the modifiers you want, now you can fight them. Elemental Druids will want to run to one side of the summit to lure the Ancients away from the center. Once your bear has their attention, quickly run or teleport to the other side of the summit and resummon your bear before it follows you. If done correctly, only 1 or 2 of the Ancients should show up, making the fight much more manageable. From here, keep your bear alive and in front of you just like any other fight. When fighting Talak, resummon your bear until it's positioned well enough to both keep Talak's attention and prevent his whirlwind. For shapeshifters, it's actually quite a bit easier. You should be able to quickly run to the edge of the summit and then curse the Ancients with a life tap wand. This should hopefully keep you and your mercenary alive while you position yourself so that all of your Fury attacks will hit a single target. This will allow you to burst one of the Ancients down very quickly with your crushing blow. Once one of the Ancients are down, you shouldn't have too much of an issue surviving, especially if you're able to keep the life tap active. The Hell Ancients requires level 60 to complete, so keep that in mind as well. Although, as a shapeshifter, you should be much higher than this as it is, so not much to worry about. Once you've completed the Ancients, friendly reminder to be weary of Lightning Souls as you make your way to Baal's throne room. For shapeshifters, it is important that when you reach the Throne of Destruction, that you clear the pathway up to the top. That way this will give you enough room so you can kite any waves out if they're too difficult. Waves 1 to 3 shouldn't be too much of an issue, but wave 4 and 5 can kill you and your mercenary even through life tap, so it's important to be able to kite them out of the room while trying to burst them down one at a time. Once you get to Baal, he's really easy as a shapeshifter. It's kind of funny actually because he's much harder as a wind druid compared to the shapeshifter, so the tables have kind of turned here. Once you've killed Hellbaal, your journey is done. Now you can magic find, now you can relax, maybe start a new character. I really hope you enjoyed this guide. I hope it's useful for you getting through normal, nightmare, and hell, regardless of whether you've chosen an elemental or shapeshifter druid. Summoners, don't do it unless you're a masochist. It's really not worth doing, but if you do it, congratulations. I just want to let you guys know that thank you so much for watching this guide, and I hope it was useful. Again, I'm not an expert when it comes to shapeshifting. However, I must stress here that I did make a druid level 1 strictly as shapeshifter, and I got through normal, nightmare, and hell following exactly what I said in this guide. So hopefully it helps you out. Thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you on my next video. See you guys.
In oblivion. Hello. I can't carry anymore.
I am impressed, mortal. You have overcome the greatest challenge this world has ever faced and defeated the last of the primeval. However, we are too late to save the World Stone. Baal's destructive touch has corrupted it completely. Given enough time, the World Stone's energies will drain away, and the barriers between the worlds will shatter. The powers of hell will flood into this sanctuary and eradicate your people and everything you've labored to build. Therefore, I must destroy the corrupted World Stone before the powers of hell take root. This act will change your world forever, with consequences even I cannot foresee. However, it is the only way to ensure mankind's survival. Go now, mortal. I have opened a portal that will lead you to safety. May the eternal light shine upon you and your descendants for what you've done this day. The continued survival of mankind is your legacy. Above all else, you have earned a rest from this endless battle.